When you make a bad product, it's going to get criticized, and that's something a lot of developers do not understand, that gamers have a voice and they're willing to use it. And now Red Thread Games, the developers behind Dustborn, have come out and put this wall of text on their social media talking about the hate and abuse they've faced. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, they've been pretty silent regarding the release of this game. Before it actually launched, they were going into tons of interviews talking about how it was inspired by 2016 political events and how you use words as your weapons to fight against what you feel is evil, but now they're releasing this long post to their community. It says, since we first announced Dustborn, we've read your comments and listened to your feedback, hopes, and wishes for the game. Over the past 4 years, our team has poured their hearts into telling a story that's deeply meaningful to us, a story about the power of words, about building a world where everyone can feel safe, about love, friendships, and robots, of course. We expected Dustborn to spark conversation and debate and looked forward to engaging with our players in a positive and constructive fashion. Unfortunately, that conversation has been drowned out by a tidal wave of hate and abuse. First of all, they have not been part of any conversations or debates surrounding this game. They've simply gone into interviews, talked about what it was inspired by and what it meant to them, and that was it. If you actually want to talk about having a discussion with people, you need to engage in said discussion, and they have not done that. Instead, they've sat in their little echo chamber and waited for people like the mainstream media to pat them on the back and say, good job, you made a piece of propaganda, and that's exactly what's happened. They've been silent. It's not like they've gone into interviews with people who were neutral about the game, or even people who were, disappointed with the game, content creators like myself. Instead, they've stuck to, themselves, to their own platforms, and they haven't had any discussions. But they say, unfortunately, that conversation has been drowned out by a tidal wave of hate and abuse. My problem with individuals like this, we don't know exactly who on the team wrote this. One would assume it's probably like the lead game director or whatnot, but they can call anything hate and abuse. It's like harassment. There are tons of people online who say, oh, you're harassing me, even though all I'm doing is criticizing you and your product. I have not personally gone after a single person on this development team. I've said I think that the developers did a really poor job with the game, but that's not abuse or harassment. They can say, oh, well, you said this game sucks and that's hate. Well, if you want to call it that, sure, but I'm not going to call it that, because that's not what is going on. It's, not a clear definition, like, again, harassment. It says, we welcome thoughtful feedback and respectful criticism. We embrace discussion and debate, but we have zero tolerance for hate speech, harassment, and threats of any kind. While, yes, I have seen a lot of backlash surrounding this title, I have not once seen any sort of threats. I have not seen any sort of hate speech. I have just seen people saying this game fucking sucks and you guys did a really bad job on it. Just that simple. Those who engage in such behavior will be removed from our community. To everyone else, thank you for coming on this journey with us. Your support means everything, and your constructive feedback continues to push us to learn and evolve. Together, let's share building a world where everyone can feel valued and empowered to share their stories. Now, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news for Red Thread Games, but there's only 29 people playing it on Steam at this point, and their all-time peak was on release day with 83 measly players. So not a lot of people went along this journey with them. Not a lot of people went along for the ride, which, yeah, I mean, again, they've still created a product they're confident in, good for them, but it doesn't seem like it's selling very well, especially when they're making all of this fuss. But when we go back to the discussion about, hate speech, harassment, and threats of any kind, they of course have locked down this thread. They're not allowing people to discuss it. But if we actually go to some of the other posts they've made on social media, like this recent trailer, they put online trying to, rally the troops and get people to purchase it, they have a boatload of hidden responses. So one would assume if they're saying they're facing hatred and harassment, right, they'd only be hiding those replies on this X post. So let's take a look at what they've deemed hate speech and harassment. So when do y'all start calling everyone racist and sexist? When the game underperforms? DEI the game. Good luck finding the modern audience. No one has been able to find it yet. It's almost like it doesn't exist. Props for making your own IP, but I'm not the target audience. I say this all the time. I'd rather companies make something new and unique instead of taking an existing IP and manipulating it. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get, a lot of support for it. You still have to create something that's really good. Fuck woke games. You morons screwed it up. Your game is dead on arrival. Stupid woke game. When is the studio closing? We are not talking about hate speech or harassment here. We are simply talking about people on the internet. Sure, you could describe it as being a little bit mean, but that's the internet. Welcome back, sweetheart. That's just what happens online. You put out a product, people are allowed to praise that product or heavily criticize that product. And that's all that's happening. People are not being overtly racist, sexist, bigoted, misogynistic. Nobody is being that way. People are just saying, oh yeah, you guys really created a banger of a game sarcastically, or straight up saying this game sucks and it's dead on arrival. And it's true, it is dead on arrival. There's only 29 people playing it on Steam and the peak was 83. And yeah, it did come out on other platforms. We don't know those numbers, but one would assume they're relatively close to this. I don't think it's got 100,000 people playing online. And it just goes to show that yes, the modern audience that these companies have constantly tried to pander to do not actually exist. Instead, you guys created a piece of propaganda and it did not tell you a good, fulfilling story with some sort of underlying message like good versus evil. Everybody in this game sucks. Everybody is mean. Everybody is rude. Everybody is hateful. The world is just in shambles and there's nothing there that provides you with some sort of entertainment value. This game was not made to be entertaining. It shouldn't even be called a game. It's basically just a hatred simulator where you go around canceling people, triggering people, belittling people, and it is a pathetic excuse for a title. And I don't see a way that Red Thread can come back from this. We do not know exactly how much money was put into this. We do know that it did get quite a lot of government funding, quite a few $1 million actually. So that definitely doesn't bode well in their favor either. Even with all that money, they couldn't create something that was half decent. And there's nobody that's supporting them really except for the mainstream media. So right now, things are not looking good for Red Thread. And instead of just saying, hey, we completely understand this isn't going to be a game for everybody. We appreciate you guys talking about it, which would have been a much more classy response. They decided to come out and call us all, haters and bigots and disgusting, people who are just harassing them and levying threats towards them, even though they have showed not one single screenshot of this alleged hate speech, harassment, or threats that they're receiving. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.